debate, or what strategy would you have? What strategy would you like to promote, or what strategy would you have against Ken Ham? So let's go around the room, and Steve Shives will open up with you.
Well, from where I sit, the thing to remember about debates like this is that, with the exception of maybe a few people who watch it, it's probably not going to change anybody's mind, because the truth is the case that Bill Nye has already been made. I mean, it's not necessarily Bill Nye making the case for evolution or making the case for a naturalistic universe. That case has been made by far, far more people than just Bill Nye. And the information is there. So at this point, really, if you don't accept the vast consensus of scientific knowledge, it's some form of ignorance on your part. It's willful ignorance, or it's just innocence of the facts. So for the most part, I don't think debates like this are really going to shift people's minds in any large way. So to me, the point is for it to be entertaining, to see my viewpoint, which I share for the most part, I think, with Bill Nye, to see it represented well, to see Bill go out there and call Ken Ham on his bullshit and correct the factual inaccuracies that I'm sure are going to be flooding out of the guy's mouth, and just not let him get away. If Ken Ham says something that is just out and out false, which I suspect he might do at some point during the evening, to just not let him get away with that. And Bill Nye is a guy in a unique position where not only does he have a scientific background, but he has a lot of pop culture recognition. He's Bill Nye the Science Guy. Everybody knows who he is, and he's a friendly, acceptable face. And if I were Bill Nye, I would go out on stage tonight and I would say, hey, look, you know who I am. A lot of you probably watched me on TV when you were kids. I'm not an evil atheist scientist guy. I know what I'm talking about. I have a background in this. I'm not going to tell you something I don't think is true, or that you could not go and find out for yourself whether it's true or not. And if this guy on the other side of the stage tries to tell you something that is not true, I'm going to point that out. Beyond that, I don't really know what else he could do.
Exactly. No, very, very great points there. Thank you very much. Let's move over to Dark Matter 2525. What do you have to say about that? And the question was, what do you hope Bill Nye brings to the debate, and what he should mention in this debate, or what he should mention in this debate? How would you go about it?
Well, unfortunately, I think that debates like these have more of an entertainment value and aren't great ways of ascertaining the truth about a particular subject, because a lot of it depends on who happens to be more charismatic. But that being said, I'm hoping that Bill Nye is able to reach a lot of people who might be watching, who are closer to being on the fence. You know, there's probably not a whole lot of people who are on the fence that's going to be watching, but I hope there is. And there is, and I hope that Bill Nye can reach them. And I'm not sure the best way to do that. You know, it's when we're talking about groups of people, you know, it's a little more difficult. I think maybe if he's just doesn't let Ken Ham try to go on these tangents and try to avoid issues and press a certain point. Don't let him get away with stuff, bait and switch and all that tried and true creationist tactics we see so often, you know, and just don't let up on the guy, you know. And
no, I agree. You still there? Would you drop out? I think you dropped out. Yeah, I think you dropped your connection there, Dark Matter. Yeah, he dropped out. Actually, I think... Are we here? We're good? Is there anybody here? They'll be back here in a second, guys. Just let them pop on in here. There was just probably a glitch with the internet here with Skype. Skype is famous for that. No, I didn't kill them all. No, I didn't. Seriously, I didn't. There's just a problem with connection, as you can tell. I apologize for this. We'll be back here in a second. No, I didn't drop the call. We'll be back here in a second. It was just to drop out. Yeah, thanks, Obama. Hello. We all back?
Hey, hey, hey.
Yeah, it was Skype. Yeah, gotcha.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
If everybody can mute, and then we'll go with Dark Matter if you want to finish up real quick, and then we'll get on here. If you guys could put on your videos, I think Robert and Price will be good to go here in a second. But go ahead, Dark Matter. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure what was the last thing you guys heard. What was the last thing you heard?
I don't even remember, to be honest with you. I was worried about getting this.
Don't
It's
let
all
up
right.
on the guy, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't want to take too much time. So
Let's switch this up a little bit. Matthew Steele.
I honestly, I don't think this debate is a good idea. That's not to say that I'm not supportive of the. It's not that I'm not supportive of confronting creationism, because I am. I don't think that this particular debate is a good idea because, as far as I know, Bill Nye has no debate experience, and debates are not won based on the points. They're won, as Dark Matter pointed out, based in large part on the charismatic presentation of the people involved, who has more of a skill, if you will, at swaying the audience. That's something that Christopher Hitchens was tremendously good at, even though strong arguments could be made that he lost some of his debates. He was a tremendously charismatic and engaging debater. That is what people remember, and that is what ends up sticking in their minds. If it's just a matter of data being presented and defended, then that's different. And people who want to be educated about the subject matter, I'm sure, are going to be very engaged by Nye's presentation, but I don't think that he is well served, nor is the scientific community, by this debate. That being said, I think that if he approaches it, as I was saying in the promo show we did the other day, Joe, if he approaches it where he's basically ignoring Ken Ham's attempt to sidetrack the discussion and also, as has been pointed out, use bait and switch tactics. If he just focuses on presenting a calm, thoughtful, reasoned argument for why creationism just isn't viable in, well, much less the 20th century, but the 21st century, it's not even a serious subject. If he approaches it from that direction, I think he's going to do much better than trying to just handle Ham's claims one at a time. I think that's a recipe for disaster. So I hope that's the way it goes. And that's all I really have to say.
No, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Negation of P?
Well, I think I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum there. I mean, where Matthew thinks it's a bad idea, I'm absolutely in agreement that it should be going on. And I know that I tend to be the minority here. It seems like the entire atheist community thinks it's a bad idea. But as most of you know, I like to confront things head on. And I actually think that Nye is the perfect spokesperson here, because he's not a scientist, he's an engineer, and he is, for the most part, just an entertainer. I mean, that's what he's done for his entire life. Now, granted, his entertainment comes with a very good understanding of science and, disseminating that knowledge. But he's respected enough to where people are going to listen to him, but not so respected that it's going to elevate Ham's claims into the scientific make it to where people are going to say, well, okay, if this scientist is addressing it, then there must be something behind it from an academic standpoint, and his points must carry some kind of weight in the academic community. That's why I love Nye doing this. But I also think that Nye does need to be very careful. And the biggest trap, especially in the venue and the way that Ham has constructed this, is that he's in a situation to where he cannot expect to walk in there and win over these people. And if he tries to do that, he's going to be in trouble. He needs to speak to the population at large, and I think, like everyone said so far, just point out what's wrong. Just say, look, please go out here and look at this yourself. This is why it's wrong, and we all can, through the internet, discover these things for ourselves. That's my feeling.
No, I would agree more on. Yeah, I'm not even going to go there. What I'm going to say here, real quick, of course, my turn, is that Bill Nye is not really a scientist. What boils down to, he's a science communicator. He educates children, or he's an educator of children. We know this from the past, like Steve stated in his statement. I feel like if he doesn't worry about too much what Ken Ham says, and he reaches out to the children or future generations because kids are impressionable, I think he should speak to them when it comes to science, the facts and the evidence, and what science is and how great science is, that, they don't have all the answers, but, a theory is this, and this is why a theory is stronger than basically a fact. You know what I mean? These are the strengths that he has to really look at, I think, and approach creationism for what it is. It's not science. It's a political activism meant, I should say, at least sanctioned, or backed by Christianity, or a viewpoint of Christianity. It's a belief, and it's they want to bring it back to public schools, or bring it into public schools like we see in Tennessee and Alabama now, and it's proselytize their religious view to the children. So I feel if he just sits there and speaks to the children, I think he'll be fine, because a lot of people in the audience are not just going. They're going to put their fingers in their ears and la la la, and that's it. And they don't care. They're just going to be applauding, Ham. He has the home field advantage. It's his creation museum, and he's not going to get anywhere with it. Or Bill Nye, I think so. But that's it. Negation. You got any question you want to ask everybody here? I'm trying to get Robert M. Price back in here. He's been having problems.
Yeah, I mean the one, I guess, to me, overarching problem is why Nye agreed to hold it where he did and didn't allow the subject to be more science based. I'm really confused with that. Does anybody? I'll start with Matthew. Matthew, do you have any? What are your feelings on why he went the way he did in both the venue and the topic?
I can't claim to know who chose the topic. It's obvious who chose the venue, if you ask me. But the actual topic itself, I think that it has more than anything to do with the video that Bill Nye put out on Big Think. I believe it was last year, or in 2012 even, talking about why creationism shouldn't be taught to children. I think that this is just sort of a continuation of the dialogue that those two had. And I think that is probably, since that is sort of, for lack of a better term, the elephant in the room, that they were sort of sniping at each other in YouTube videos. I think that's probably where the topic of this came from. I have reservations about the argument. If they were going to just talk about the science itself, that would be one thing. But
I never really got an opportunity to chime in here. I guess I'm the only one that's looking forward to being convinced of creationism.
Oh, we didn't give you a chance here, or no? I'm sorry.
No, I didn't get a chance there.
Oh, sorry about that.
Here, I'm looking forward to, going to bed tonight a creationist. I mean that's the way it's going to be.
I have a feeling your girlfriend or your wife would be very disappointed.
I'm
she
sorry.
doesn't really care about any of this shit.
You're getting saved.
I think that of all the people to prove creationism true, should be Ken Ham, because the guy seriously looks like he missed out on the last couple 100,000 years of evolution.
He does have like that caveman look to him, doesn't he?
Great.
But I mean, in all honesty, I'm
Go ahead, man.
hoping-
I'm sorry about that.
What I really want to go through, what I hope to see out of this is, I think it'll be a success if Bill Nye can just take one or two maybe common creationist arguments that we are so tired of hearing and just make them look really foolish. Maybe foolish enough that the creationists watching maybe stop using those arguments. Because I keep hearing the same, like I've almost given up on creationists, altogether, because you just hear the same shit over and over. They've got like nothing new to add to it, and once you put enough time into it, you're basically wasting your time after that point. So I'm hoping maybe he can make a couple of creationist arguments look absolutely fucking terrible. Maybe make a couple of their points look silly, and by doing that, maybe lessen the amount that we hear those arguments. That's the only good thing and positive outlook I can see that's coming out of this. I don't see a whole lot of people like was said earlier changing their ideals because of one debate or whatever. And maybe you get a couple, but the truth is that it's going to be people that the only people really interested are the people that already believe one side or the other. And so if you're not going to change minds, at least maybe you can change arguments.
Well said. And where are we going now? Matthew, back to Matthew?
I don't think Steve got a chance to chime in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, Coctopus gets a good laugh from saying that, I'm looking forward to being converted to creationism. And, I mean, that is pretty funny because it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But in a sense, I mean, if we can just hypothesize for a moment that creationism is true, don't we want to be convinced? I mean, I care about what's true. I care about what is actually true. And the reason I'm not a creationist and the reason I reject creationism is because I don't think it's true. I mean, and I have all kinds of other moral and philosophical opinions about it, and all kinds of reasons I could talk about why I think that a natural universe is preferable to a theistic universe, particularly a Christian one. But ultimately, none of that matters. What matters is I don't think it's true. And if it were true, and Ken Ham has reasons to believe that it's true, I want to hear what the reasons are. The problem is, we all sort of know from past experience that he doesn't have any reasons. It's not even that he doesn't have enough good reasons to sort of put us over the top. He doesn't have any reasons. And, I mean, pointing out a couple of shitty creationist arguments, I mean, that's always fun. And like Octopus says, you can go on doing that all day. I mean, every creationist argument I've ever heard has had something serious wrong with it. One of the things he might also try to do, and I don't know if he'll have time for it, I don't know if the format will allow for it, but it would be nice to hear Bill Nye try to do something toward demonstrating that what Ken Ham does and what creationists do, what apologists do, it ultimately, at its essence, it's not actually science. It looks like science, it plays at being science. It's not really science, because science is when the conclusion follows from the data. And creationism is your preconceived conclusion. It's the exact opposite of science. And I don't know if that message would be received by very many people in the audience tonight. I don't know if that would get over with a lot of people who don't see that already, but it might be worth pointing that out too.
Well, I think the interesting point, especially where you made it and how you came back full circle on that on the science end, is that, we should be doing exactly what Coctopus was saying, is that if we're going to be willing, like Steve said, to use the scientific method, that's exactly what it mandates, that we push our biases aside and say, okay, if you have evidence, let's look at it. And, I mean, that's a great point. We need to really start trying to practice what we preach, so to speak, and take these quote-unquote evidential claims and run them through the mill.
Oh yeah, and they're not ever really any evidence, are they? It's all these truth claims and the Bible. the Bible.
Well,
Like,
the
how do you
problem-
know that? It says so in the Bible. And like,
The-
how do you
the-
argue with someone like that?
The problem is that they're playing by a different set of rules than we are. I've given a lot of thought to presuppositionalism, especially, but just theistic arguments in general, and they consider knowledge to come from God. So it's a spiritual knowledge that informs your ability to use reason. So they're using, in my opinion, a top-down approach, and people who are more concerned with science and empiricism are using a bottom-up approach. And that's why there's so much crosstalk, is that they're starting with the assumption that God exists and God is telling them what to do, despite the fact that there are so many mutually exclusive concepts of God, and then they're trying to get atheists to see that our reasoning can only be circular if we're using it to justify itself. And that's, I think, where most of this is coming from. And when you add so much scientific illiteracy and ignorance, willful ignorance, into the mix on the creationist end, it's just there's no way for us to get through to them so long as they maintain the presupposition that the Bible is literally true, because it's like this barrier that they keep around themselves to protect themselves from critical thinking. And until you can break through that, find someone, as Steve was saying, who cares about what's true for its own sake, then there's not going to be any real dialogue that can be had. So that's why this sort of discussion or debate that's going to happen tonight is so dangerous. It's because they're playing by different rules. It's not like an academic, scholarly debate on the finer points of this passage or this scientific principle. It's not anything like that. This is basically going to be, hopefully, a very nice and considerate mudslinging match. That's all it's going to be. I don't see anything productive coming out of it.
I agree. I actually agree with that. Like I said, I think, like I agree with you, Matthew, on a small level, where I feel just like Richard Dawkins says that he shouldn't really, he should never did the debate or accepted the debate. Bill Nye, you know, who knows? It could be money involved, whatnot. I have no idea.
But why not? Why do we have to shy away from it? If we shy away from
because
it,
it's a belief that's already been debunked by the scientific community by large. So why pay any more attention to it?
There's a lot of people out there that believe it.
Exactly.
Obviously, he's at a fucking creation museum. Obviously, people still put the fucking time and money and arguing into it, and they want to be part of politics and everything. Why the fuck not? I'm not going to run away if someone. I don't care if you're. Just because, okay, a stupid person wants to argue with me, I'll argue back with them.
That's not what I'm claiming.
If they're super stupid, I won't argue back with them. I'll be like, nah, fuck it, you win, fuck that.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I'm too much of a douchebag. I'm just like Bill Nye. I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Oh yeah, you want to do it?
You are a fucking douchebag. Let me clarify myself here.
To point out,
I need to clarify myself.
Ken Ham is not stupid.
He's not stupid. He knows it, and this is what I'm going to say. This is why I'm saying this. Please let me finish.
He's cunning.
He's very cunning. He's very smart. And he's a good public speaker. Okay. Now that being said, I just came out the video, which many of you already seen.
Hunting? Is that what you guys said?
I said he's
cunning.
Yes,
C-U-N-N-I-N-G. Cunning.
Close, but no cigar.
He's cunning. I can't say the G, so. No, seriously, let me expand on that, Cockpuss. I think as for this debate, I don't think he should. The reason being is Ken Ham is doing this for a financial reason. He's not doing this to educate people. He's hurting. I just made a video about this about a month and a half ago. He's hurting, man. He only has 10% of whatever this Noah's Ark project is. 10%, that's it. He hasn't even touched ground yet. And starting this year, he has to start paying taxes. They already gave him a tax break of $30 million in the last 3 years. Okay? So he's doing it for a financial reason, for financial backing. So ignore him, and people should ignore him. That's it. He should never accepted this debate because he's hurt, and he knows he can make a lot of fucking money off of this, and he will. Unfortunately, he will.
Look, it's one thing to say that I'm going to take like a top scientist and like waste their time or something, but it's just Bill Nye, and he does the science shit. You know, he's kind of a face for science for a living. So why the fuck not?
He's a public educator,
yeah, man. So why not put like it's wrong to say like, oh, these people they're as an educator. Well, I'm not, but as an educator, Bill Nye would be going against like the motto of an educator, that is, you don't give up on people.
But it's not an even platform. It's not an equal platform. No matter how
bad they don't want to hear it.
It's not an equal platform.
But here's the problem: is that you're looking at, I mean, there's what 56% of the freaking U.S. is still believing in religion.
Yeah.
You've got depending on how the question's phrased, you can get as high as 40% that don't believe evolution has been proven. I mean, it needs to be out there. And the big problem is as much as we want to sit here and pretend that these people don't have a platform, they do. He's got his own fucking museum, guys. I mean, Ham can reach out. And I think that, just like Coctopus said, if you shy away from this, there's a lot of people out there that are going to interpret that as the scientific community can't back up their claims.
Yeah, we lose by default.
Exactly. Because
fuck that shit.
Well,
I sort of disagree there, man. I sort of disagree there. Like I said, like I'm all about discourse between creationists and evolutionists. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's fine and dandy. But I think for the reason of Ken Ham financially losing his ass, this is going to get him another year or two, or however you want to look at it, whatever platform you want. He's gonna make some money off of this. A lot
That's
of freaking
fine,
money.
That's like
but
fair.
you know what?
Let
No,
him make
but it promotes him. It gives him more money to promote his fucking bigotry and hatred towards science. Okay, he claims science backs up his. No, it doesn't. Okay, and it's giving him more fuel. It's giving him more fuel to hurt more children, and we shouldn't be giving him more fuel.
Or
this
it makes
is giving
him look
him
like
fuel.
a fool and changes our society for the better in the long run.
First of all,
or it could do that. Are you going to take that chance, or do you want him just not make money and just be able to promote
well,
his bigotry
I'm certainly not
going to
bankrupt him as my argument. My argument against his creationism is not like, oh, bankrupt your ass.
I see what you're saying, but I feel like, I just feel like if he does what he needs to do...
Should be able to win with science and make them look like fools, and that's what they do. That's what we need to do, because it's that feeling foolish that got me to become an atheist, to stop believing in God.
Of course.
To try and back up those silly arguments and the silly stories that you claim to believe in, and eventually you get, it's tiring. They must be exhausted, the creationists.
Yep.
You must be exhausted because you're constantly having to do loops in your head and explain shit and flip logic so that it makes sense for you, and it's got to be exhausting. But it needs to be fucking exposed.
They're on their last thread. They're grasping at straws, and that's what Ken Ham's doing with this debate. Go ahead, Matthew.
Here's a dimension of this that we're not really considering. Just as TJ or Coctopus was just saying, the feeling that he was getting of dissonance, if you want to call it that, was one of the motivating factors for him to leave religion. There are still a lot of people in the U.S. who are just insulated from scientific knowledge, whether by their own doing, by their community's doing, for whatever reason. So there are going to be people listening who are on the fence, even on the creationist side. I encourage you to watch if you haven't seen it, the Dembski versus Hitchens debate, where he was already losing his hair from chemotherapy, and he was they were debating in front of a congregation, if you will, at I think it was a Christian college, or some sort of a school where there were a lot of Christian young people. And by the end, Hitchens was getting a lot of applause. And that is because he was making points that people who are not necessarily overly biased were picking up on. And we can't sell people short just because they believe in creationism or some version of theism, that they are completely immune to rational discussion. Some of them are. Some of them have a vested interest, like Ham. But some don't. Some are going to listen, and if enough of a good point is made by Bill Nye, then it's going to do, I think, more good than harm in the long run. It's just a question of how overwhelmed he is by the debate itself, by whatever tactic, whatever presentation Ham is going to bring. Because if it's just, as they call it, Gish Gallop, where it's just a flood of misconceptions and lies and distortions of the truth the whole time, then there's going to be too much for Ham for Nye to get through. But there's still going to be people listening. There's still going to be people in the back of their minds who are thinking, is there really anything to this? Am I 100% correct? Because not everyone is sitting at a position of complete confidence in their faith, in their ideology, whatever they believe. There are still people out there who can be reasoned with. And I remind you again that most atheists in the U.S. and Western countries were once believers. So there is progress to be made depending on how this is done. And the easiest way, in my experience, to get through to people like that is to talk to them in a considerate manner. So the one...
Kind of like you're doing with us right now. What? I see, I have a problem with that, though, man. I try and be nice, and then they say something stupid. I'm like, you're a stupid fuck.
I'm not talking about being considerate of beliefs. I'm talking about being decent to people.
I'm a decent guy, so I guess I get away with that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's why I love you. You're a decent guy, and I appreciate that.
He's a puss.
What's that?
No, go ahead.
How long until the guy hits the
I was
fucking watermelon with the sledgehammer?
I was just ranting.
No, it's okay. Let's break
How long
up.
until Gallagher comes on?
25 minutes, but we got another 2 questions here. I got a question. I think Negation has a question for you guys. So let's split. Guys, very good discourse, man. Really appreciate that. Actually, we can actually disagree a little bit on the reason. What?
Joe, I mean, we didn't hear anything from Dark Matter or Steve.
I'm sorry. I thought they were already won.
No.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry. I apologize. No, because
800 people.
Because Cockpuss won, then Steven, and I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
I apologize. I'm trying to keep track here. I got my little notepad here.
It's all good. I'll quietly sit here and wait my turn.
No, go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
No, well, I kind of can see both sides of this disagreement between Joe and Coctopus and Negation, where I totally get why you would say we should not give someone like Ken Ham the time of day, him specifically. Because you're right. I mean, there are indications that he's doing this to raise his profile and to raise funds for the Noah's Ark project, and the guy is he has nothing to add to move the conversation forward. He throws out the same tired, completely refuted creationist arguments that we've heard time and time again from hundreds of other people. But at the same time, it's true that in the United States, our culture, the number of people who doubt established scientific facts is embarrassingly high. And not even getting into the issue of the number of people who believe in God. That's like a question that sort of sits above this stuff, is the question of, do you accept that evolution happened? Do you accept that the universe is 13.7 some odd billion years old? Do you accept that the Earth was created at some point after the sun? Do you accept these demonstrated scientific facts that we have no reason to doubt, except that they might contradict some religious tradition that we cherish? So in order to change that, and I care about changing it, because I think to the extent that we can base our beliefs on established, demonstrable facts, that will make the world a better place. I think the world will be a better place if we can have more people believing in stuff that we have good reasons to think is true. And so if we care about changing that, at some point we have to confront people like Ham, perhaps not Ham himself, but people like Ham, who have it wrong and are telling people things that are just demonstrably false, or at least can't be shown to be true in such a way that they are claiming that they can be. And we have to push back against that. And it's not just debates like this, because I agree with the sentiment in the room that debates like this, they will reach hopefully a few people on the fence, but they're not going to change anybody's mind in any sort of grand scale. It's a task that we have to take on a more cultural level. We need more shows on TV that are unambiguously scientifically minded, where it's not just, like Secrets of the Bible. Well, oh gee, maybe it's true, but maybe it's not. You be the judge. No. On questions that we know the answers to, we should present the answers unambiguously. We shouldn't tell people, well, Christians believe that the earth was created in 6 days, and the current scientific consensus says that there was a Big Bang 13 billion years ago, and you be the judge.
Or like Bigfoot hunters on Discovery Channel?
Yeah, it's exactly the same shit. It's exactly the same shit. There's just as much evidence for Bigfoot as there is for the Garden of Eden. And we shouldn't take either claim seriously, because there's no evidence for either one. And we shouldn't pretend that there is just to honor some well-intentioned but misguided idea that we have to respect people's religious beliefs. no matter how crazy and unsubstantiated they are. And maybe this debate is just a tiny, tiny step in the right direction, but this event or some events like it are things that if we care about changing things and we care about educating people in science, it's shit we're just going to have to do. And every single event might not be as perfect and as ideal as we would like it, but it's work that has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So,
great points, man. Thank you very much. That was great. Dark Matter 2525.
People like this guy, Ken Ham, people with influence, they need to be checked. They need to be. People listen to them, and they can't just see. In a place where we have freedom of speech, where you're free to say anything you want, and rightfully so, not be forced to not be able to say what you want to say, there has to be consequences for when you say things that are stupid and wrong and just asinine. There has to be people out there who are going to, keep you from spreading your poor influence on the world. And when we don't do that, when these guys just spew their bullshit and nobody keeps them in check, and they gain influence, they gain numbers, they gain supporters, and then they start spreading, it's like a cancer. And we're in danger. This happens a bit on both sides, but people tend to fall into their echo chambers and only listen to one side or the other. And if there isn't people crossing over into enemy territory and bringing the arguments to them and stepping outside of those comfort zones, then people get away with then people get away with spreading bullshit and convincing people that bullshit is true. And I hate that. I think it's hilarious that I remember Live Life's talking about his Noah's Ark project that he can't get off the ground. How the fuck did Noah do it? I just wanted to say that. How did Noah do it, this ancient guy, but Ken Ham can't do it?
It was
with his
magic.
millions of
God's
dollars.
help, bro.
That's
It was magic.
That's a good laugh, dude. Thank you. I needed that. Oh, that's great.
So then I guess God isn't with Ken Ham then.
He doesn't have enough faith.
Noah actually staged a debate with the Bill Nye of his day and charged admission, and then that Noah equivalent of Bill Nye drowned in the flood. So everybody.
I want to see a debate between Ken Ham and Francis Bacon. That's who I want to see.
Wow. Yeah, that that would be interesting. Wow. Yeah, one thing that you kind of touched on there, Dark Matter.
Real quick, we're going to restart this broadcast here in a couple of minutes here, but Negation, if you want to propose your question, and we'll restart because there's a little lag, but it's not on my end. It's on Vaughn Live TV's end, of course, so we do apologize for that, but you should be able to hear us still.
It's because we had 900 people in the room.
That's probably why, too. We're probably crashing their servers, but no, go ahead, Negation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's nothing big. We can just, if you want to restart, we can do it that way.
Yeah, let's do that. Let me restarting broadcast. If you guys want to type in there too, real quick. Restarting broadcast. We'll be right back. It's only. No. I think we should be. Yeah, there we go. Maybe, right? Yeah, we should be live. Good Negation.
Okay, we're back. All right. Now, actually, Dark Matter touched on something that, in fact, I was on a show earlier today talking about this same deal, and one of the topics that came up was it seems like the equal footing deal boils down to people feel that we have just as much faith from the scientific end as they have from the evidential, or from the religious end. And I mean, when it gets down to it, there is a certain amount of faith that is involved with believing science. And I thought it'd be interesting to kind of go around and see how you guys think that question should be dealt with, not only here, but if it comes up with Bill Nye in that room, because faith is a huge component of everything that most of those people in that room, their life revolves around. And it makes it very easy to go, well, you know, you haven't seen evolution. You haven't seen a monkey turn into a man. It's just, you weren't there. It's just as much faith-based as we have. You know, I mean, you know, Coctopus, what do you think you ought to do with that type of thing? Or what do you think we all ought to do with that type of thing?
Sorry about that. Repeat very quickly the question.
Now, when people say that, you know, evidence is, or science is as much faith-based as religion is, you know, admittedly some of it is, because we didn't do the science ourselves. So how do you think, if that comes up with Bill, how he should react, and plus, you know, how should we react in general to that?
It's easy. You basically say, because if science is right, anyone can fucking do it. And if you really doubt it, then go find someone that found otherwise, or do it yourself. When it comes to religion, their faith-based is all different. It's all over. I mean, religion itself, even if you were to say, like, give each religious person, you win the argument. Now explain how every other religious person is wrong. You know, that you can't do that. All of their faith and everything comes from totally, you know, different backgrounds, different areas. It says different things. But when you come to science, like, science doesn't, many people do it, but it all has the same result, and it comes to the same conclusion. And you can do science. I mean, it doesn't have to be crazy science. Things like gravity. You understand gravity, and everyone believes in gravity because they know if they jump off a fucking building that they're going to fall. Not everyone believes in religion because, well, a lot of people think that, you know, oh, I pray, and therefore, like, and then God talks back to me. And other people are like, yeah, you're fucking crazy. And it's because there's no way of proving that kind of, like, faith-based shit. I guess the easiest way to answer it is to say that science comes to the same conclusion when done by anybody. And that's how you know it's good science, whereas faith is just like personal testimony, and I guess not everyone comes to the same conclusion. They all come to terribly different conclusions, which is a pretty easy argument in favor of science being the more accurate of the two.
That's interesting. Steve, I've heard you talk about this on your own channel a little bit. I like your response. I mean, at least what you've done. So you want to give us your take on that?
Yeah, well, there are two things that come to mind quickly. First is in the book that I'm reading for my An Atheist Read series right now, the author of that, Timothy Keller, tries to make the argument basically that everything is religion. That science is just another form of religion because scientists can't prove things conclusively, therefore their conclusions are based on faith, just as a religious person's conclusions are based on faith. And the problem with that, first of all, it's disingenuous, because the conclusion that a scientist might come to based on examining evidence or conducting experiments or making observations and predictions are of a completely different nature than a religious person. If a scientist says, okay, I have concluded that if I drop something, it's going to fall and hit the ground, he is, in a sense, making a leap of faith because he doesn't know to a 100% certainty that when he drops the ball, it's going to fall and hit the ground. But he can point to all kinds of evidence from his own personal experience, from which he can make an induction, to tests he can perform on the laws of physics and how gravity behaves and how it acts on objects. There are all sorts of things he can point to that anyone else can see as well, that will point him in that direction, toward that conclusion. And he can come to that conclusion not to 100% certainty, but to a very, very high degree of certainty, to enough of a certainty where it doesn't make sense to assume that anything else would happen, right? And whereas with a religious person, you're dealing with a claim of a completely different nature. You're dealing with someone who believes something because somebody who lived a long time ago says that God told them something, or because there's a claim that at one point in history, usually before there was such a thing as science, something happened that could only have been possible if God had done it. It's based on hearsay, it's based on no evidence of any kind, it's just based on claims that have been carried down through the years. So they're two fundamentally different types of faith. In fact, the scientific type of faith is actually based on evidence. Even though you can't get to a complete 100% certainty, a scientific type of faith is based on evidence. And a religious faith flies in the face of evidence, or at best is just assumed without any evidence at all. The other thing I would say is that with science, when you look at a scientific explanation, whether you are a scientist and you're trained and you're a professional or not, for any scientifically understood phenomenon, any well understood scientific phenomenon, there is a specific explanation for what is going on. If you take a drug and the drug has a particular effect on your body, you can describe the effect of that drug in a very general way. You can say it makes me dizzy, or you can say, well, it makes my headache go away. You can say it makes me nauseous, or whatever. But you can also take that explanation down to an incredible level of specificity, down to the cellular, down to the molecular level, where it is understood exactly what is going on, exactly which protein receptors this drug is blocking. We know exactly what is going on. And I, as a layman, might not understand that. I might not be fluent at that level of technical explanation, but that explanation exists, and I can find it. And if I can find someone else who has that level of education and expertise, I can show it to that person, and I can say, is this right? Is this what happens when you take an Advil? And he'll say, oh, yeah, that's exactly what happens. And if he's really a good ambassador for science, he can even explain it to me in terms that I might be able to understand. Whereas with a religious explanation, we see nothing like that. A religious explanation never goes any deeper than, well, God did that. And I think the reason for that is because most of the time the phenomenon they're describing never actually happened.
And not only that.
Guys, real quick, I don't mean to cut you off here. We only got a few minutes. We have about a minute lag here on the internet. I need to drop you guys from the call here in a little bit here, probably within the next minute or two. We got to wrap this up. The debate starts here in about 8 minutes. But what I need to do is, it's going to take me a minute to get offline here and refresh the connection so there's no lag during the debate. So what I'm going to do is drop you guys off here after Matthew goes. You guys can wrap up here and do a little closing statement for a minute or two. I want to have you guys back, of course, for at least I don't think, Matthew, you're going to be able to join. But the rest of you guys, please, after I drop the call, come on back for the post show. Let's make some notes. We're going to take some notes here on the debate, and we're going to have a little discussion afterwards, and see what we think about it, and we'll go from there. Sorry, Matthew, go ahead.
That was a great point that Steve was making for the fundamental differences between a sort of religious viewpoint and a scientific viewpoint. I would also like to point out that there are a lot of people who accept scientific viewpoints without thinking about them, without questioning about them, and that in those cases it would be akin to religious faith. But properly executed, properly conducted, a scientific-minded person is more concerned with being skeptical, disproving the scientific information that you've been given. Even if it's something that's well established, you should still be approaching it from the viewpoint of this could possibly be wrong, even if it's 100% accurate, even if you're almost positive it's 100% accurate. That skepticism is very important, just because in the scientific community, the whole point is people are trying to disprove their coworkers. They're trying to disprove their peers to show that the explanations that we have might not be correct, and in that way you can be more and more certain that they are correct when people try to disprove them, try to disprove what you're saying, and they can't. Like when you have someone say that evolution isn't true, all you have to do is point out where they can go to find out that it is, if they really want to. If they care about whether or not it's true, they'll go look for themselves. Or better yet, they'll become a scientist and go try to figure out the information on their own. But one thing that has to be mentioned for evolution is this false dichotomy of microevolution versus macroevolution. That is only made by people who don't understand the difference between the theory of biological evolution and abiogenesis. That's it. If anytime you hear somebody make that mistake, it's because they don't know what they're talking about. And all you got to do is point them to scientific research papers or even Wikipedia to get started on actually figuring out where they're just deciding not to think anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
I think
the macro is a big thing, yeah. So guys, let's wrap this up, guys. We only got about 30 seconds here, and I got to close it down and reopen it. So
right.
go ahead.
Well, dark matter still needs
and
to
dark
go.
matter needs to go in. Go ahead, dark matter. You want to go real quick? Big
You
boy.
want me to talk about the faith issue? I
Yeah.
think that science, since it's observed, since it's all about observation, that it's not faith at all, other than your initial hypothesis. And there's not much faith in that. You're testing that. You do science because you don't have faith, and you want to perform tests in order to discover the truth of the matter. It's like when some creationists have told me, well, I have faith I have faith even that the chair underneath me won't collapse, or when I get into an elevator or an airplane. Yeah, I do, but it's because I've seen these things work throughout my entire life. I've observed them. So it's, how much faith can you call it? It's technically, yeah, there's a little bit of faith that I'm going to sit in my chair and it's going to withstand my weight, but I don't think it's anything like, oh, there's this wonderful place I'm going to go after I die that I've never been to before. It says so in this book, and I'm trusting it. I have no reason to. I've never seen it. It's a completely different thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to close it out real quick, as far as the way I see it is the dogmatism. I mean,